Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Jeremy Booz, who is a digital strategist at Elite Advisors Media Group. Jeremy, welcome to the program.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, you're welcome. So I'm excited to talk to you because all things digital is where we are currently. It's not even where we're headed in marketing. It's just digital, and it's about standing out and following up and just making sure we have success where our audience lives, which is in the digital sphere. So I want to dive into what you guys do, but give us a little bit of your background and then what led you to Elite Advisors Media Group.
Yeah, well, I've worked with local businesses for several years. Started getting into the digital marketing space about 6-7 years ago. Doing a lot of search engine optimization and local SEO in that regard. In the past 3 years, I've joined Elite Advisors Media Group here in Brighton, Michigan, where we focused more on social media advertising, lead generation, and solutions to create a better brand awareness with your practice, as well as client nurture services.
Yeah, and you focus all within the financial services industry, right?
Correct. Yeah, we're focused in that niche, so all of our content and things of that nature are honed into those messages.
Yeah, I think it's really so important in any industry, but especially financial services, because there are some industries that you can go, oh, well, I need to pick a whatever, just pick an industry. And it's like, well, I can flip a coin and pick one. But financial services is a really intimate industry because you're bearing your financial soul. You are, interviewing a financial professional to potentially move your life savings and entire retirement planning to an organization. And you need to know who to pick and know why to pick them. So what is it that you guys work with first? Because I know you need to, get leads and convert the leads in like a sales funnel. But what's the first thing that you start with when you work with a new advisor?
Yeah, I mean, to quickly touch on that point that you just made in regard to, it's a very intimate service-based industry. There's a lot of trust and rapport that's required to not only convert clients, but also maintain and build the trust with those clients. Because like you said, you're dealing with the life savings and the financial underlinings of their household incomes and things of that nature. So when it comes to building that trust, building that rapport, we implement, a number of different social media branding services that position you as the expert and build that trust and rapport that's so critical. So, for example, our social media branding campaigns published an eclectic style of posts that generate engagement, illustrate facts through various types of infographics, things of that nature, just little tidbits to kind of pique the interest, inspire engagement in the marketplace, and keep you top of mind, because that's also what it's really all about, especially when you're in such a competitive space as a financial professional. It's important to stay top of mind with the consumers. As far as that goes, that's a branding, top-of-mind awareness type of program. But then we also have, standard newsletter programs to drip on the consumers on a monthly basis, where we publish and make available to you informative write-ups on various companies, financial topics, but as well as lifestyle-oriented content, because the consumer is more diverse than just financial topics. They're interested in other things outside of that. So it's important for the advisors to be able to engage with the clients on a more diverse level in that sense, and we believe that that's important. And then lastly, kind of more of a bottom of the sales funnel type of program are our workshops or on-demand seminars. And, those are essentially the qualifiers. So you bring you bring clients into the top of the funnel through the brand awareness campaigns and some of the lead magnet offer campaigns where they're warming up to you. You're building some rapport there. You're establishing yourself as an authoritative figure, building some trust, and then you engage with them in a more interactive type of program, such as a workshop or an on-demand webinar, where you're collecting more information and further qualifying them. And then at that point in time, the next step in the process is to actually close them.
Yeah. It's a process, and it's not a one-call close. Like you'll see promoted out there on social media, like, hey, send someone to your webinar that's automated, and here comes the form filled out, and you get them on the phone and close. It doesn't work that way. Sorry. I mean, maybe in one industry or the other, it might here and there, but it's a relationship. And so I think that's that top of mind awareness is huge, staying in front of your target audience. Let's talk a little bit about, like, where do you start? Because in the sense of this, what you just described is a wonderful place to start, but that's not something that's going to provide instant, immediate leads and closings. Right? It's a process. So you got to have that funnel built out. You got to have that branding and top of mind awareness. But talk a little bit about, like, what about buying leads and prospecting for leads, and then how to convert those? What is your the way you support advisors in that realm?
Yeah. So, when talking with advisors in regard to kind of our program structures, I came up against a lot of objections, and a lot of advisors are more apt to buying leads. They've become accustomed to that because they believe that they're more qualified, they're further along the consumer decision-making process, and they're ready to actually, or they should be more likely to be ready in making a purchase transaction. So I, published a video, the pros and cons versus buying leads versus paid prospecting for leads. And I believe that there's pros and cons to both. I'm not going to be, sided towards one or the other. So when it comes to buying leads, I believe that there's three pros to that. One, it's easily quantifiable. So, when you purchase leads at a set dollar point, you're going to get this exact number of leads in return. So that allows the business to, forecast in their budgets and be a little bit more efficient when it comes to their ad spend and their marketing dollars in that sense. The second pro, I believe, is time efficiency. Let's face it, when you're running a marketing funnel, the leads aren't going to come in instantaneously. It's a building process, and they're not all going to convert right away. So I believe, time efficiency is one of the pros there. And then the fact that they technically should be pre-qualified before you actually speak to them is a pro in that sense. So I'm not 100% familiar with the buying leads programs in regard to the questions that they're qualifying these leads on, but I would hope that they're asking some substantial questions before you go out and pay a top dollar for these leads. So that being said, buying leads and the cons associated with buying leads, you have a lack of brand awareness in that sense, because whatever mechanism these leads are coming into and then getting questioned and qualified, I would be under the presumption that your brand isn't front and center within those initial engagements. So the consumer, downloads a paper or contacts a phone number because they're interested in a product or some type of service offering. But throughout that process, your brand isn't there, and you're not being that influencer in that process. And then all of a sudden they're handed, you're handed their phone number, you call them, and it's kind of like blindsided to a certain extent for the consumer. So it provides a taller hurdle for you to get over.
Yeah, because they didn't really find you. necessarily. They filled out a form or whatever. They didn't seek you out. You are approaching them, and they're already got their sales resistance up in that case. So you got to do some real good work in reality to break down that resistance so that you can have a conversation with them to explain what you do, because otherwise you're just another name or an email coming in their computer.
Yeah, exactly. And so that being said, the cost associated with buying quote unquote qualified leads is generally pretty high. I mean, I've spoken to some places out there and some advisors and agents who actively buy leads, and they tell me that they're paying anywhere between $200 and $300, or even sometimes more per lead. So if you're hitting a barrier, if you're getting objections when you call those leads initially because you haven't really warmed them up, it's essentially a cold qualified lead, in my opinion, and your closing techniques and your ability to transition those conversations into a trustworthy type of relationship is critical, because if you're not closing at a high enough rate, then that cost can quickly balloon out of control.
Yep. Yeah, and then you've got to make sure you don't waste those leads. So let's just say that you bought X number of leads at that dollar figure. Well, do you just send one email, just send or make one phone call and try to get it? You better have a really good follow-up process to make sure you're not wasting that money.
Right. So even if you're buying leads, lead nurture systems and communication systems that keep you top of mind months, and years out, it's still necessary. And so you're kind of paying a premium, but still needing to implement those long-term nurture processes to actually capitalize on them.
So if someone came to you and said, hey, I like what you're saying, what can you do to help us? Maybe someone's buying leads, but what is your solution to this? Because I'm hearing, there's some good things with buying leads, but there's a lot of cons that you really make you pause to make sure your system is dialed in well. What are you guys doing to make sure that you're delivering results for your clients?
Yeah, so at Elite AMG, we focus more on creating a greater number of leads at that top of the sales funnel stage, and then nurturing those leads through touch points and qualification programs and things of that nature. So when it comes to paid prospecting, which is essentially, what our focus is, let me quickly touch on the pros and cons of that as well. Opposite of buying leads, when paid prospecting, you have increased brand credibility. From the get-go, you're likely generating leads from a white paper download or a webinar attendance or something of that nature. So your brand and your authority of your knowledge is out front and center, up front, and the consumer knows who they're actually engaging with. So that's a pro when it comes to that, increased brand credibility. Second is engagement data. So a lot of times, on various different social media platforms, when you're running ad campaigns, if it's set up properly, you're collecting engagement data, whether that be if somebody lands on your landing page, they convert, they make an emoji response or make a comment on the post or click on a link. Those are all pieces of engagement data that you can then turn around, create custom audiences or lookalike audiences from, remarket towards. So you're optimizing your ad spend because you're essentially creating two data sets at this point. You're creating a tangible data set from the people that converted, and then you're creating this intangible data set of engagements that you can then turn around and do branding towards and create greater market awareness for your company. So that's a kind of a underlying pro there that people don't think about. The third pro, as far as paid prospecting, is it's far cheaper compared to paying for qualified leads. So now, that being said, when a lead comes in off from a lead magnet campaign or a white paper download, I qualify them as a warm, unqualified lead. They've kind of raised their hand. They downloaded material, so they show interest in your particular service area, but they're not ready for a sales call yet. And so they're warm but unqualified. But that's where your lower funnel programs come into play to qualify them. So, our programs here generate leads anywhere between $30 and $55 per lead. That includes ad spend and ad management. So you are able to generate a lot more leads at the top of the sales funnel compared to buying leads. And then theoretically, as you implement your nurture processes and your qualification processes, it's my position that long-term, you will have a greater return on client conversion because you've got more data sets to work with.
For sure. But it still is a process. It's not as easy as turn it on, get leads, get them on the phone, and close them. So that is the reason that the cost is lower is because it takes a little bit longer to develop. But I agree with you 100%.
Correct. So that being said, like I said, I'm not biased in my opinions. There are also negatives to paid prospecting. You have an undefined return. You've got to commit dollars. You've got to commit time and trust the process, not rush the process. And you're not guaranteed that set number of leads as you are when you're buying leads. But if you're working with a proven company who can, show you historical results and things of that nature, then I would say that there shouldn't be too much worry in that regard. But it does have an undefined return to a certain degree.
Yeah, for sure.
The second con that there might be would be that it requires commitment and trust. Like I said, you've got to trust the process and not rush the process. So like you said, Mike, it's not a quick return. It's a process that might take 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 months before that initial lead actually makes a decision. You built up enough rapport. You built that trust to then have a serious conversation about their financial future. And because it is such an intimate and personal and important topic that it does take time to the consumer decision-making process is a bit longer compared to other industries. So, and lastly is that they are unqualified. Like I said, it's a lead, but I don't necessarily qualify it as a qualified lead. But it is a lead nonetheless, and that's where the lower funnel programs come into play. So I think going back to your question there, things that we provide in this paid prospecting type of lead capture, lead nurture process are our social media branding campaigns. We've got a great newsletter program. We have a number of different lead generation white paper downloads. It's called the Ultimate Retirement Guide. It touches on annuities, life insurance, a sequence of returns. So if the potential retiree retires during a market downturn, there's material in there to illustrate the negative effects that can have on their long-term retirement income. And then a number of different workshops and programs on Social Security and Medicare and things that are oriented towards the financial services industry. So we've got a gamut of topics and messaging that we can help advisors generate leads, but then keep your brand in front of them and educate them and provide value, which is so important before you actually have that sales-oriented conversation.
100%. Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And it really, what you laid out is just the traditional and tried and true and proven sales funnel process. You got to get awareness. You got to get some leads, however you get them, buy them, or paid prospecting, and then stay in touch, follow up. And it's like they said in the old days, and it still rings true today, you need to follow up until they buy or die. Well, if you don't have mechanisms in place to follow up so that they remember you, you're losing out on a lot of things. And I've heard the statistics where it takes, 8 to 12 touches of reminders, a text, an email, a phone call, whatever the case is, for someone to finally come around and go, oh, yeah, I need to do that. Well, if you stop after touch 3 or 4, you're missing out. So I think that you guys lay out a really, really powerful program. If someone is listening to this thinking maybe they should check out some offerings that you guys have, what's the best way they can reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, they can reach us at eliteamg.com. We've got a contact form on there, or they can call my cell phone, 734-447-0049, or email me at jbooz@epadvisornetwork.com. And I'd be happy to have a discussion with any of them. And I guess before we end the call here, I want to close out and say that, I'm not biased one side or the other. I think that there are pros and cons, as I said before. So it almost, it really depends on your business goals and objectives. I also see opportunity in implementing both of these strategies if your business is able to, handle that type of expense. And by implementing both, it kind of gives you a controlled lead process, but then a more optimized, cost-effective lead process. So, to each their own to a certain degree, but definitely I think that there's opportunity for both of these to operate side by side. And let's see. Yeah, I guess that's about all. Our focus is, like I said, on creating greater number of leads, creating stronger brand awareness, and then converting those leads to quality educational materials and engagements. And we believe that the brand awareness and the long-term prospects of converting more leads is in favor of a paid prospecting type of lead generation model as opposed to the other, but there's still room for both.
Super. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been a real pleasure talking with you and what you guys do for advisors.
All right, Mike, I appreciate you having me on.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.